Hi, everyone. Today is Wednesday, March 17th of 2021. And it's so nice to be here with Rudy for, of course, Rudy's Psychic Meetup. How you doing, Rudy?
Hey everyone, happy St. Patty's Day. Sam, I'm going to have to give you trouble for not wearing green on St. Patrick's Day, given your Irish descent. We're good. Tonight's topic is sacred shapes, patterns, and geometry. So Sam, this topic came to me thanks to Barefoot Doc out there, who mentioned she saw a Merkaba when she was doing some energy work on someone. And it got me thinking about these shapes and patterns. And let's go ahead and take a look at a bunch of them and see what information you get. Because I don't think you were getting anything on it when we were chatting after the nerds call. So I thought it'd be fun to just talk about these and see what comes up. So let me start off and just talk about sacred geometry, really. So from anything, you think about our eyes, snowflakes, flowers, trees, they all seem to come out of these geometric codes or these basic shapes. So many people or teachings have described this as the blueprint of creation. And it reveals a precise way that energy organizes itself, it can grow. And then all these natural patterns and things come back to these shapes. So Sam, as you look at these shapes, do you get anything on just the geometry you're seeing, these standard shapes that we see in our 3D realm?
Well, I think the one that is in the second row in the center, that one immediately got my attention.
Okay.
I think that's an important one.
Good. Anything else? Because that is actually the next one, or we go to one of those. Yeah, we have a special slide for that one.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was the one that immediately when you showed me this, because just to let everybody know, I mean, for those people just joining us for the first time, or you're still very new and you don't know the story, I am a self-proclaimed psychic medium. I have not been working in the public as a medium up until recently. I feel like I'm still in training, and this is a grand experiment over on my Patreon hobby channel where we all love cryptos and woo-woo. And tonight we're dedicated to woo-woo, and I have no previous training in woo-woo. I have no knowledge in it. And it's great because I don't have any predispositions on anything, which has been awesome. And these shapes, and even when Barefoot Doc said what she saw, I didn't even know what that was. I was like, what is that? You saw what?
Yeah. And then so on the top left, we have the flower of life. This is, anyone who's been around in the woo-woo space or the new age movement, a lot of these shapes will look familiar and they end up being decorations. But Sam, the one you picked is called the toroid, and we'll talk about that. There's also something down here called Metatron's cube that we'll talk about, but essentially shapes within shapes. So the first thing I want to talk about is fractals, and I'm going to see if this one plays here. Yeah, there we go. So a fractal is a never-ending pattern that repeats itself at different scales. So they can be extremely complex or infinitely, or maybe somewhat simple or infinitely complex. And let me go back. The one I'm looking at in geometry, this triangle here is one that you can just keep zooming in on. It's the same pattern over and over again. And it's really made by repeating a simple process or formula again and again. And you can see this from the way tree branches branch out, or the brachia in your lungs. This picture down here is a river pattern in China. And up here towards the top right, we see you can make the snowflake pattern just by having, putting these angles in a straight line over and over again. And then you zoom out, you see it in hurricanes, you see it in the galaxy, the solar system. So Sam, what do you think when we see these patterns that are fractals that are defined mathematically, right, and repeat over and over again? Does anything strike you like this is kind of like a formula or a pattern built into all organic material that allows it to grow and reproduce, or some sort of set of rules that things reproduce in this way in our 3D realm?
Yes. I heard somebody say to me while you were talking, math is everything and it's all in the balance.
Interesting. Okay, almost like everything is a formula. Yeah, and that maybe that's why people are so attracted to trying to, graph, or you can try to plot these shapes. And you're right, math is at the basis of everything. So that's fascinating that you got that. All right, the next one. This is the shape that you were drawn to that was in the center of that first one, and this is called a torus. And I remember, years ago there was this like film movement that came out called the Thrive movement from what's the guy? He's from the Procter and Gamble family, Foster Gamble, I think. But they talked about this toroid shape, and it was really interesting. And the torus is in geometry. It's really, if you just take a circle and rotate it around an axis in a 3D realm. That's kind of what you get. And again, this is another type of pattern that you can see over and over again in nature. If you look at the poles of a magnet, down here on the left, you can see the magnetic poles of the Earth, what that kind of looks like. The way a tree grows out of the ground, it branches up and the roots go down. Top right here, we have a red blood cell. Again, we see our hurricane pattern, even an apple, just kind of the way the apple grows out of the center. And same as I look at this, I tend to think this is almost like the pattern of energy, how energy tends to move throughout all things in the world. What do you think? How does this relate to energy, do you think?
Are you talking about the one in the middle that I pointed out?
Yeah, I think this is like if you flip it on its side, that's kind of what this represents.
Right on. Yeah. Well, it would certainly explain why I was drawn to it, because that's what we are mostly, is energy. We are light beings, and that's what lives on inside of us. So after our body dies, the energy, it doesn't die because it just takes a different form. Right now, it runs our human body. And then when our human body can run no more, it departs and moves on and becomes something else. And that is us.
Okay. Yeah, as I was thinking about this last night, even sometimes when I'm just, kind of calming myself and breathing, I'll imagine, drawing energy up through my feet, through, like through the earth and going out through my, like the crown chakra through your head. And, you can really, if you think about this, you kind of feel the way energy moves through your body. This makes a lot of sense. So I really was drawn to this pattern here, like you were. Next one, we're going to talk about the Merkaba or Merkaba. I'm just going to call it Merkaba. And this is another pattern that we see. And this is the one that Barefoot Doc talked about that she saw kind of overlaying someone. And so there's a couple things with the Merkaba. It's really two tetrahedrons, which is just a triangular pyramid, overlapped but within a sphere. Okay, so that gives its proportions. And the Merkaba was mentioned in Ezekiel in the Bible as kind of this chariot of light, kind of a divine light vehicle that's used to kind of go between realms or dimensions. And it was also described as that kind of the Ezekiel's wheel, I think. And really, it's these rotating patterns of energy, but in these forms of a triangle with a peak at the top and a peak at the bottom. And so many religions, this will show up, but is most associated with the Jewish religion. The 2D version is the Star of David, right? And we see that. And if you overlay this on like the Earth, or you overlay this on Mars, you'll notice like patterns or volcanoes at key points. So Sam, when you see this Merkaba, does this relate to anything that you see how kind of energy moves through the Earth or people or any of those things?
So which one is the Merkaba? You've got about 16.
It's all of them. So if you look at like the Merkaba itself is the two triangles, okay, the upside down and the right side up one. And then which would be
where is it on the
like the top
sacred shapes patterns? Is it like number
let's
2?
See. Was it on the Merkaba is kind of in this one.
Which one?
This at the third row down on the left, first one on the left.
Oh, that one.
It's
okay.
Kind of that one.
Yeah, and for the people on the podcast, sorry.
Yeah.
The live stream, you can see it, but it's like, well, it is, and I can see the sort of the Star of David inside. But what confused me was the circle around it.
Okay.
But I don't get anything from that one at all. I just the energy one was the big one that I was feeling very drawn to.
Yeah, the circle, you have a circle around it because it falls within a sphere. So that's kind of what contains it and gives it its dimensions. But yeah, you look at it, it's like all these different degrees and in 3D. So like there's one that they map over the Earth and you can see all these different volcanoes, and one's in Brazil, one's in the Sahara Desert, and they all map to these points. And even on Mars, there's one. But just back to kind of what I know within what my wife has talked about and what Barefoot Doc has talked about, people will see this energy pattern rotating around people. And some say it's like if your vibration gets higher, they can kind of spin more and they become more defined. But really, I think they're counter rotating. And I think what Doc was working on was she saw this getting kind of stuck and she helped keep that energy moving. So, yeah, I don't know if you get anything else, Sam, but if not, we can move on. But it's an interesting concept to think how energy can, again, move through the body.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's definitely beyond my pay grade because, again, I don't really know everything that I have information on or can get information on. And we only know that through trying. And I do find it interesting, though, that out of these, there's actually 20 shapes that you have here. And, I focused in on the one that, represents energy and that speaks volumes to me. And I'm sorry I couldn't get anything for anything else, but let's move on to the next one.
Yeah. The next we'll talk about, and this might go back to kind of what you said before, where math is everything, the golden ratio. I don't know if you've ever seen this or not, but, we tend to think of physical beauty as based on this divine proportion. And to put it simply, it's like if you divide a long line, and I'll let you look it up, it's math, but essentially the golden ratio is 1.618. It's a kind of a repeating infinite number. But if you overlay, like they use these proportions to put a mask over like celebrities, you can see, faces that fit these proportions we tend to find extremely attractive. You can put it over like if you are framing photographs, it's kind of that, to help you frame up photographs. The Mona Lisa, follows this proportion. And even like Leonardo da Vinci, his Vesuvian Man, this is that famous drawing of the guy with his arms out and then his arms up, fits into and kind of demonstrates these proportions. So Sam, anything on this divine ratio? Is this more of just the math being kind of at the center of everything?
Yeah, it is. It's quite wondrous, isn't it? When you look at it, it's one of those things that make you go, Yeah. What it really is, it's a wink from the universe to let you know and remind you that you don't know everything, that everything that you see with your eyes isn't necessarily everything that's there. There could be lots more. And, so humanity, don't get too full of yourself because nature and math is in control, not you.
Yeah. And the other one we hear, sometimes these are overlapped or confused, but the Fibonacci sequence. And obviously we talk about that. Maybe we'll ask Chart and Spartan to graph the Mona Lisa with the Fibonacci retracement, but it's pretty close to the same ratio, right? And if you think about it, even though it is, when you look at this from a market analysis, whether you're plotting the Dow or, Bitcoin, that seems to follow an emotional pattern. And what's really interesting is how you can apply this Fibonacci sequence, and almost our emotions follow this pattern as well. And I found that fascinating, that it wasn't just physical, but it was also things that are non-physical that can seem to fall into this pattern. Does that make sense, Sam? Or do you think that's just coincidental?
No, the pattern is not coincidental.
Okay.
It's the way it is. It's like I said, it's the perfect math.
Wow. All right. And then we're going to end up on our last one here with Metatron's cube. So first of all, Metatron is an archangel that is in Hebrew, I think mentioned in the Hebrew religion. But it's also, I think Metatron is said to kind of keep the book or the right record of everything that happens, the Akashic record. There's all kinds of things said about Metatron. But this, sorry, go ahead.
I just got some information. I'm getting some information that name has not been translated properly because I'm like, what? A name? It's not a heavenly name at all. Metatron? That's not a heavenly name. It's not. And I don't know how I know that, which is kind of freaking me out a little bit. But I think and they're showing me what I saw the translation. Like you see like the scripts, and then you see the actual printed Bible, the Torah. Right. And so you see it, and that's what says to me, it's been lost in translation.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that name always stuck out to me as odd. I always think of Megatron from, Transformers, but
it's not a heavenly name. I would recognize, I'm like, no, that's not, even the name like Mephistopheles, that's the name for Lucifer.
Yeah.
Right. But that's a heavenly name, Mephistopheles.
Okay.
That's what he was called when he was in heaven. And it's named like that. Like that's, those names, Gabriel, Michael. There seems to be, do you follow me on that? It's like more the names, the heavenly names are more gentle, like Mephistopheles. Right.
Yeah, this doesn't. Yeah, you're right. This never seemed to resonate with me. Metatron stuck out there as weird.
Yeah, and then he was thrown out and became Lucifer, which is Lucifer. It's a more jagged and a pushy name. I don't know if I sound crazy or not, but this is just what they're just teaching a lesson to me here. I'm like, wow, I've never thought of that before. So that's very interesting about this translation for this name for a supposed archangel, and I'm like, you're not identifying any archangel to me.
Well, yeah, I'm almost getting the feeling that the names themselves hold the vibration too. So that's a good way to describe it as a harsh name versus a gentle name. But in any event, this is what it seems to be commonly referred to as. And again, this Metatron's cube is said to basically contain all basic shapes that are within our 3D realm, and which is why it's so notable. And within it, you have up top here, which is the flower of life, which is just a bunch of circles within circles within circles. And at the bottom right here, if you kind of pull this all together with the toroid, the energy, you can look at maybe how chakras might go through a person's auric field and all the circles that go out from there. I know even my wife talks about when she's working on people and chakras, there's different layers of chakras. So everything has a layer to it. And I think what really the draw to Metatron's cube is that it almost encompasses everything. Like all these shapes are at different levels, different sizes, and they all come together, and it's we're this complex field of energy. So does that part at all? Do you get anything on that?
I think that you see the combination of the energy and the math that is involved with these different shapes and I guess formations. And you can also see that there is a perfection in that in itself. And like I said, it just wings from the universe everywhere. And I almost think it's to keep us in our place too, because it's just sort of shows us really like how small we are in the whole scope of things. But it's sort of it's consoling in a way too, because I mean, look at the world. I'm glad humanity's not in charge.
Right. Yeah, it's fascinating to think about. And some of the religions really look at these codes as an encoding from a higher being or source, that somehow that this is a message, like you said, that there's more to it, more going on than meets the eye. All right, let's get to the questions. The first one, we have about 15, and the first one is from Marnie. And I'll let you start clicking, because we have to do that now where you click through. Okay, Marnie says, "Hi guys, thanks for everything you both do. I've always felt drawn to living near water or overlooking the water. Can living near water be spiritually and physically healing for the mind, body, and soul? And any spiritual blabs about water in general? Thanks."
That's interesting, Marnie, because I don't view the questions before our live stream. And I was just thinking about how important it is for me to be by water. So when you look behind me, you see water. I have a home that is on the ocean. I just sold my lake house, and it's just, I feel the need. And my home actually is just down the street from here. So it's easy for me to walk and see the water.
Yeah. Teresa is that same way. She has to be near water, or at least go visit water. And we're being told we have to buy a beach house at some point.
It's very calming. And when you work in this realm that I work in and you're noticed by the dark principalities and they harass you more, but also dark entities harass you more, like that are just in the general area. But I find for some reason down by the water, they're not around here so much. I'm not saying they're not down here at all. I just find they're just not down here so much. So of course I, spend most of my time down here at the studio, which is right on the water.
Yeah.
And the other place I had, you could see the water from the other side, because I did do a couple of live streams. We had different situations we had about 4 different locations to do the live streams in the studio, like 4, and one of them was the water was behind me. So at least I could see it,
Yeah, cool. Okay. Yeah, it's very calming. So, all right.
And just before you start reading the next one, I just wanted to mention as well, for those who don't know, my son, he is like me. He inherited what I inherited, but with a twist. He still sees dead people and things in between and stuff. So I stopped visually seeing them on a regular basis when I was very small. I still see them like once in a while, but I've banned it because it's not good for me psychologically to be seeing with my physical eyes realms, the beings from in between and on the other side. I mean, it freaks me out, right? I don't want that to happen. But my son has not been able to turn it off. So, by being closer to the water, I know when we lived in the house all the time, he liked going down to the beach house because even though Darkman, it wasn't like Darkman was never there. He wasn't there as much, like not near as much. And he saw a lot more light beings and he saw like good things instead.
And the next one comes from Deb. Hi, guys. There are so many people that are extremely afraid of animals, especially dogs, yet have never been attacked by them. People can also be scared of heights and find it difficult to climb stairs if they can see through the gaps, or walk on a jetty if there are gaps between the timber and you can see down to the water. Can you blab about this? Is there a past life issue that they are dealing with? What do people have some of these fears, Sam?
Okay, so while I do agree that sometimes you can have, for example, a scar that you're born with and it's considered a birthmark, but it's representative of what might have happened to you in your previous life. But the only reason it's there is that it's a wink from the universe, from the other side, to show you that there is a connection there, because we do see examples of that, for example, but these things about being afraid of heights, things like that, I know that many, I'm not going to say everybody is a fraud, but I do work I admit freely to people that I work in a realm where 95% of the people are either frauds or not very good at what they do. They overcharge for their abilities, I guess, is the way that it is. But anyways, they do more damage than good, I guess. That's the way I could look at it. But so they tell people, if they have fears or whatever, oh, it's attached to your past life. And that's very unusual. I mean, if you died in, like my last life, I was stabbed to death, but I'm not afraid of knives.
Okay. Yeah. It's it's interesting because also at the same time you'll see people like in Yellowstone that try to go up to the elk or like they're farm animals. I think most people have maybe their instincts are a little bit higher where they're just distrustful of animals in general. So yeah, that's a good point. All right, next one. Christine Lahota has another question. There's speculation that Harry is not Prince Charles's biological son. What do you see with this?
He is not.
Okay. Yeah, there was I just saw Alex Jones mentioned it on something, but essentially I think the theory was that he was, that she had an affair with, I think, one of the guards or somebody who's not Prince Charles. Yeah.
Well, I did not know that I was actually, quote unquote, channeling her when I was talking to a British couple. I was kind of embarrassed afterwards, the way I spoke. I was like, oh my God, I don't even have a dog in the fight with Princess Diana. And I think those people were offended. Well, she, through me, lamented that she was not with her children. Like she looked at her end of life review and yeah, you know what? She did a lot of great things for a lot of people outside of her family, but her boys suffered to not have her around. I realized they were with their dad half of the time, but she told me, this is what she told me. Cause I mean, I'm not British. I don't follow anything to do with the royal family at all. I know that there's people in the Commonwealth who follow the British family, but I'm going to give you a heads up. I'm not one of them. Right. But one of the things that happened to me back in probably 2012, and this is what made me like have to come out as a medium, because it was getting ridiculous. There was a woman who showed up in my house all at Twitter about the birth of the first prince. And this was the first baby that was, I know Alexander and Lewis are in his name. What's his first name? The oldest one, Caden, William's first child.
William.
William, that's it. But I think it was William Alex Lewis, something like that. But she gave me the name Alex, and I thought she was talking about my nephew. But she was all excited, and she was British, and she was like talking about the prince. And I was like, oh, the prince has been born. But then I thought I mistranslated, because she was talking about, because I have a relative, at that time, okay, a nephew by that name. But like I said, it wasn't until later on that I was like, oh my gosh, I have these people waking me up now. But before that, I had no idea it was Princess Diana talking to me, but she admitted to me at that time, because she was like literally talking about, she was talking about someone who had just had an end of life review. And she was talking about, not being faithful to her husband because she was really lonely. And this person saw that, took advantage of it. And oh my gosh, she was so afraid that people would find out. But of course, no one would even dare check, because it would have just been such a big scandal. Right. And because it wasn't the firstborn, it didn't matter as much.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they're saying in the chat, the writing teacher, he was a major at one point in the British Army. Interesting. Okay. Next one come from Snezana. I think I'm saying that right. Hi, Sam and Rudy. I want to share my recent experience and appreciate your thoughts on it. And Sammy, I'm curious to see if you can get impressions of when people have these thoughts or visions, to see if you're able to interpret them in general, or if, everyone has to do this on their own. But I had a vision of a very green hill in the shape of a pyramid, which I started to climb intuitively. Near the top, I see our Doge with a sun hat on it, sitting, waiting for me and smiling at me. I was so happy and greeted him with excitement, and to my surprise, Doge was pointing to something on his left. It looked like that direction, and there was written a sign of $5. This was surreal. Thank you both. So, Sam, when you get this, questions like this, and then maybe you have these in your readings too, when people have these visions, are you able to interpret them for folks and tell them what they mean?
Well, I think that it was one that was brought on by my suggestion in Discord channel just the other day, or maybe I know I just recently said that I could see Doge being as much as $5, because someone asked me, I'm like, I won't hold it, to $5, but I mean, I'll have some of it.
Yeah, so, I think that was either on YouTube or your live stream. One of them this weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes you can be overtaken by the power of suggestion by someone like myself who has abilities, and so I would be surprised. That doesn't necessarily mean that, I think Doge is going to go to $5, but I think that vision was more as a result of my suggestion. That was the information that I was getting. So I'll just apologize to you ahead of time. Sorry about that. I didn't know you were so intuitive and I affected you. So, now that you know that can happen, we'll be more careful.
I find that too with dreams and such. If I think about what happened, I'm usually being influenced by something that happened recently. So,
yeah.
All right. Tinkerbell writes, when born again Christians say, do you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior? Is it a made up saying, or does it really mean that we can only go back to heaven if we say it and truly believe in Jesus?
You know what I find tragic about that whole situation is that, humanity murdered a really good man who had very special abilities and was sent here to get humanity like right on a better track again. Because that's what happens, is that once in a while, one of the very high ascended masters, breaks away from source and comes down, even doesn't have to, but comes down here to get us back on, just give us a little punch, that little push in that direction to get us back on the right track so we don't completely destroy ourselves, right? Because, it is worthwhile. It's a great training ground for the light beings that we are. Because it's really tough here on the earth realm, and it really shows us, what we're made of on the other side. Like, we learn so much, and they have classes on it, and you see the sort of replay of like the worst decisions people made, the best decisions people made, and I hope to be on the best decisions people made, learning curve, when it comes to the other side. But this whole, we can only go back to heaven if we say that we truly believe in Jesus. Like, everybody goes back to heaven. Like, everybody does. And this is the tragedy of it, is that they murdered him, and then they made up this cockamamie BS story that you have to have him as your personal Lord and Savior, or you can't cross into the other side. It's like, listen, bucko, you guys murdered him. You killed him because you didn't like him. And then thankfully, he had a friend named Nicodemus who bribed the guards, and just when they even did the sword thing, right? They took him down, and that's why they claimed to see him. 3 days later, he raised from the dead. No, man. He took him 3 days to sew him up and get him so he could even walk after they gave him some water and some food and stuff. He was finally able. And of course, he left right away because he was fleeing to France. Okay. So this whole cockamamie, you have to know Jesus as your Lord and Savior, or you can't. It was just. It's a tragedy. I respect Christianity. I like the teachings of the Bible and how they, lift people up. There's really great stories that we can learn from, because that was his purpose of being here, was to teach us and, get us moving more on the right track. So I think Christianity is a really great religion, but this whole, those people who aren't Christians, you can't cross over to heaven. Listen, we take it from me. We all cross over. The only thing you need to worry about is getting stuck in between. And I just tell people, don't be afraid. Go to the light. Don't look back. Remember, it's not judgment. It's a review. It's an end of life review. It's not judgment. So go to the light, get it over with, and then move on.
Yeah, I never like this compelled speech, like you have to say this or accept this. It's kind of they want you to give up control so that then you rely on them. That's, just humans creeping into the equation.
Yeah, and I accept religion. I do. I accept and think that it's just it's, to me, it's a hobby. It's a group of people. It's like a club. Yeah. A bunch of people getting together and teaching their children, about right and wrong, and, and worshiping God together. And that's very positive. The singing, the uplifting, and the community. They're taking care of 6 people. It gives people as well who don't have family in the local area. It gives them a group of people that they can kind of cleave onto as well, which is very important. So I do think that, many churches have sort of replaced what was very common more so 100 or so years ago, where people did not move around so much. So, if you're a regular person who attends a Christian church or any other type of religion, cool beans for you, right? I'm glad that you are somebody who has some beliefs, and you can believe in me and what I do and the stuff we do here, as well as enjoy yourself with worshiping God and taking time every week to commune with, a bunch of people who have the same set of morals that you do. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Next question from Delbara. Hi, Sam and Rudy. I'm hearing that the UK monarchy will be discarded because of their crimes against children and humanity. And do you see the housing market in the UK going down in price? Thank you.
Well, I do see that you're not going to get value for your home in the UK, and it's going to be because, can you get money for your home in Lebanon right now? Probably not. So I would look at Lebanon, and I would fast forward. I would say that's very much the direction that the United Kingdom can be going. I'm very concerned about that. So, been telling people, listen, sell your property, but if you're there for the long haul, then it doesn't matter, does it? Right? Whether or not it goes up or down, or it goes to dust, goes to zero. The point is that you got a roof over your head, you're in a nice, safe community with your family, and when things get rough, you and your neighbors can all pull together and you will get through it, right? The thing about the monarchy, I did say that the monarchy, I did say it actually in very early days. Actually, when was it that Jeffrey Epstein, was it August 10th of 2019? It's been that
a
long.
while ago. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was early days for my channel when I predicted his demise. And also about Prince Andrew, I said, Mummy's not going to be very happy when she finds out what, Andrew's been doing with the family money, right? And that's really going to be a big part of it, is all of this. And also, I couldn't believe that when Harry married Meghan Markle, I was like, a lot of people were asking about it and stuff. And I was like, I said, I really can't believe that he married her. This is not going to end well for the royal family, right? So and that's early on. Like if you go back in Patreon to like the 2019 stuff, and I'm clicking on the questions on I'm sure it was Samnet, and it must have come up on live streams because people follow, the royal family. I don't. So again, you're going to get it. I'm going to shoot straight from the hip. I mean, I'm not pro or con anybody in the royal family. I'm just going to tell you what I see.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was hard to miss the Oprah interview. I didn't watch it, but I watched people's take of it. I thought it was pretty humorous. So.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely.
All right. Next question comes from Lexi. She says, when either of one of you pray, are you praying to God, the religion you grew up with? Do you see God as represented in the metallic books as both female and male, or something entirely different? Do you think God has a body or is a light source of stored energy?
Oh, I don't think God has a body at all, any more than I have a body on the other side. And when I pray, I'm really concentrating with my mind, and I try to channel my energy to that intention as well, because I believe that we can do that. And usually it's for a purpose. Other times when I'm talking, it's more like I'm talking to, I refer to them as the people on the other side. And all the people on the other side are just people who are like us, who used to be here and now live on the other side, and they're helping us, because when we die from here, we go and rejoin the source. We're all one. Like, so God is not like, one being that's like running everything. We are part of God. God is like the center light, and we're all around it, like all of us. So when you leave and you come here to learn your lessons, you go back, but before you go back and rejoin, you have your end of life review, right? And then you go back in and you rejoin. And there's no male or female. I mean, the only reason you have male or female here on the earth realm is so that that mankind, that humanity can continue on. That's the only reason that people have different genitalia. Is the same reason that the animals have genitalia, because we don't live forever. So therefore, we have to have offspring, and that's the only reason. But on the other side, you live forever. So why would you need male or female? You don't need to make any offspring. It was just God, the original source, light being, who burst out and became many, many light beings.
Okay. Yeah, I think of the same thing. I don't think of God as a person or a body. I think of it as kind of a source of energy that we, like you said, you come in and out from. That's a good description. Raymond says, "Hi, Sam and Rudy. If the Earth is the only planet that has a violent nature, when we travel to other planets and land unexpectedly, will we be treated kindly and accept it?" So I guess that begs the question if we'll go to planets that have other living beings, right?
Right. It's more likely that we would be taken there than going there. Like, think about it this way, that if, alien nation arrived, representatives, and they offered to take people back with them.
Okay.
Right. That would be a situation that could come up, right? That would be more likely in the scope of what I see to happen. But we are not the only planet with a violent nature. Because remember that when you are outside of the light being realm, where God or source exists, heaven as it's known by us in our human minds, when you exist outside of that realm, there's always the opportunity for evil and darkness to impede, because that's where the testing, the only reason we're even on the planet Earth is so that they can have at us, because they certainly can't get at us in heaven. But the joke is on them, because through the experiences here on planet Earth in the 3D realm, we as light beings become, we become stronger. We have more knowledge. It turns out to be a good thing.
Okay. All right. Next question comes from Daniel L. It says, "Hi, Sam. Is there any significance to preserving a corpse, like in the case of Lenin? Does that trap the soul somehow?"
No, actually. And you know what's interesting, Daniel, and how I know the answer to this question is because even when a person is in a coma, their soul can come out of their body and travel around, at least in this realm, and speak to people like me. So they have freedom, even when they're even when you're in this, your brain is in the state of a coma, and your mind is not influencing your spirit so much, and then it can leave the body and wander around, still attached by the cord, of course. Once the cord is cut, though, and that can happen, that's when somebody dies, it happens. So you say the key word, preserving a corpse. Well, it's just like if you drive around in a car, and once the car becomes old and broken down, it ends up in the junkyard, but you're not in the car anymore. In fact, a lot of times, do you know what happened to your first car? I sure don't. I don't know where it ended up, my first ever car. So it's the same as when you leave your body after it dies and is supposed to turn to dust. You don't think about it any more than what you would think about, your first car and what happened to it, right? Oh, yeah. So there is no point to preserving a corpse.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Next question. Bradley J., you get the star this time for asking a question that is in line with the overall topic, which I didn't share beforehand. So Bradley J. says, "Hello, Rudy and Samantha. Would either of you know what the Roman dodecahedrons were used for? It remains a mystery even now. Hundreds have been found, some made of gold, although most were made of bronze. Thanks for your insights." And Sam, I'll go ahead and just share a picture of one real quick that I have up here. This is a dodecahedron. And Tech Cowgirl says they're for knitting gloves.
It's actually considered a good luck charm. And the, how people have those little stress balls and stuff like that? They believe that if you put your hand on this, because they were small enough to put in your hand, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, because I don't know how big these were, but they're showing me that people have them in their hand and they're squeezing them. And I guess the pressure points are supposed to do something to relax you.
Yeah, that sounds right. And there's also been found used as candle holders. But yeah, within Doc, you could probably weigh on this. Within the Chinese traditional Chinese medicine, there's energy meridian points or endpoints in your hand, and that's part of that calming effect of those Chinese Benoit balls that you might have. So interesting. Okay. Kwaku says, "Hi guys, Sam. What do you get if I name you the planet Irdin, Irdin, Irdin?" Oh, you have to click the button, Sam. Sorry. Are we on the next?
Oh, sorry.
All right. There we go. All right, Kwaku. So, Sam, what do you get if I name the planet Irdin? I have been told that I have a connection to it. I want to know if you can give any type of info about it. Thanks. Never heard of that planet before, Kwaku.
I think the person you're speaking to, Kwaku, is making things up.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that when you, have somebody who's pretending to have special abilities, I'm telling you right now, there are so many people on the planet who would do anything. They would pay any amount of money to be able to do what I can do because it gives them the attention that they crave, And I feel bad for them. But in the same sense, I don't like how they just make stuff up and tell, well-meaning individuals who are trusting them because when I talk to Kwaku about anything, I know that he takes it to heart. I'm very careful about what I say to make sure it's real and true. Like I test stuff before it comes out of my mouth, and I'm happy to see that it's looking like my accuracy has gone from like around, I would say before I was around between 60 and 70% to maybe over 90 now.
Wow.
That's what I have been told there. If you looked at everything that's being thrown at me at one time and the fact that, so much stuff hasn't come true yet. But the stuff that is coming true, I'm either like right on, or you can kind of see how the story is the same, but I was off on a few things. Just my translation was off, but I still count that as a win because I'm like, well, they still bought VeChain. Right? I'm like, you still bought it, so what? I didn't get the exact story, but you still bought it, right? It all worked out in the end. So that's how I feel about that situation with Kwaku being told that he has a connection to the planet Erden that is totally and completely fabricated. There is no truth at all in that. And whoever told you that, if they have claims of having abilities to speak to people on the other side, whoever they're talking to, they're not talking to anyone I'm speaking with.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that, Sam. Next question comes from Jackie B. She writes, Happy St. Patrick's Day, Sam and Rudy. Can you explain timelines? Can the same person be in different timelines simultaneously? Can different events or choices change the timeline we are in?
No, you cannot. There is only one life that you live here in the 3D realm, and this is what you're judged on. Or, I always said it's not judgment. Okay, so this is what you're reviewed on at your end of life review. What you do have, and where I think the misconception came in, because I do like Dolores Cannon. I do know this comes from this quantitative or whatever. They have a whole bunch of I looked into it more. They were sending me emails and I'm reading stuff. And people are asking questions and sending links. And I'm like, oh, they have gone quite a bit off track, haven't they? Oh, my dear. Oh, my goodness. Poor Dolores. You didn't mean for that, did you? No. But you also see where they just they misunderstood stuff. Okay. And that's what I like about, some people ask me stuff and they're like, well, is Dolores Cannon fake? And I'm like, no, absolutely. She's not fake. Everything she said is true as far as she knows. But she can make mistakes just like I can. And it's like, well, how do you know that you're not the one making a mistake? And I say, well, she freely admitted that she wasn't a medium. She really didn't have even any ability to discern. And if you're not a medium, you can't discern. But what was cool about her experience is that she was getting the same story from a number of people all over the world. So, yeah, I believe in Dolores Cannon and her experience. Do I believe in this pseudo spiritual religion or teachings that have spawned from her? No, I do not believe all of it because there's been some misconceptions, which the different timelines. I've explained before that as a medium, I can see all of the different choices that the person would potentially make, but it hasn't happened yet. Yeah. Right? These are just potentials. These are not them in other lives and timelines. What it is I have to discern which option it is that they are going to choose when they get to these different nexus points in their life. And then I can discern from that. And then usually I'll get a hit from that in someone's life where it's like, yeah, you are not going to end up staying with that person, and this is what's going to happen instead. Yeah. Right. So,
yeah, I like the nexus points you've described in the past, and you can choose the right fork of the river or the left fork, but you're all going to end up down the river one eventually, right?
Yeah, you already end up in the same spot. But the whole point in that is that somebody misunderstood it and started to teach people that you could have multiple lives here at the same time, and that is not true. Are you on the other side? Part of you on the other side watching you experience this? Yes. That is true. And that freaked me out. I was like, oh, that's weird. I don't believe you. I'm like, okay, it's true then. They showed me and I was like, oh, okay, it's true then. They're like, well, if it's not true, then, this and this and this isn't going to happen. And then bing bong, somebody I'm like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what you told me to prove. Do you know what I mean? Like they do that to me all the time. They're like, when I'm like, no, I'm just misunderstanding this. Well, if you're misunderstanding it and it's not true, then nobody's going to ring the doorbell and have a package for you to sign for. Like bing bong. It's like even before it happens, I'm like, and that's what's sort of leading up to me working with you guys. All that stuff would happen to me all the time. And it got so crazy. It was ridiculous. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to do this so you guys will leave me alone because this is getting too nuts.
I like that that you're skeptical as well sometimes, so that's good.
Yeah.
All right, Johnny, be good. Oh, interesting question here. Hi, Sam and Rudy. Can we hear your thoughts about the New Madrid fault line opening in the near future, and where is the best location for surviving before or after? And the New Madrid fault is in the center of the United States, Sam. Kind of goes up and down the Mississippi River, that area. And in 1811, there was a large earthquake there that actually, I guess, for a while, the Mississippi River flowed backwards.
Wow, cool. I mean, not cool for people, but they're very scary. The only big upset that I see coming to the North American continent that could potentially happen in our lifetime is Cascadia.
Okay.
And that's only because all of these Californian people who had booked, I probably had in 1 year, maybe about 6 or 7 people from California book a reading with me. And I mean, I don't do that many readings in the run of a year. Like really, I don't, because I am a creator full-time on Patreon and I have been pretty much since the beginning of my my journey here. But I think that people are just, again, getting worried about stuff that is going to be, I see great things for America. How could I see great things for America if there's going to be like a murderous earthquake that hits the US? Even Cascadia it'll be bad, but like probably for example, the city of Vancouver and South and Victoria and South, if you're in like the interior BC, northern BC, if you're on Vancouver Island, but like middle of the island and up, you're fine too.
Okay.
So even that's not going to be like life ending for all these people. It's more of going to be, the pain in the butt factor for people who had condos that ended up getting these huge cracks in them because Cascadia went and, now their condos, they can't live in them anymore. And they paid, $1.2 million. Oh, bummer.
Yeah. In the woo community, I think there's been maps out there, supposed secret maps the military put out of, what the earth will look like. And you'll have this huge ocean open up in the middle of the U.S. and that scares people.
No, that none of that is going to happen. Listen, I've only been in this space for 2 years. I've been pretty good so far. And I really do believe that if this was going to be a problem, that, I wouldn't even be looking at the U.S. as a potential future place for me to land, right?
All right. And Tiffany writes, I think you've kind of talked about this before. I heard that Japan could fall into the ocean. Is this really possible that the whole country would sink and disappear?
Yes.
Okay. But it's going to be slow. But it's going to be slow. Okay. I think you said slow.
Lifetime. Yeah. Not in our lifetime.
That's good to hear. And let's see. Christine Lahota, another question. If we are light beings, why do we experience physical and emotional pain?
Well, this is the whole point of becoming human, right? Because we can't experience physical and emotional pain as light beings, but as humans, we can. And that's the whole reason that we come here, because then there would be no point otherwise.
Okay. Let's see. Crypto Bounty Hunter, I'm going to have you wait and add a question in the meetup with Moo tomorrow. But you do have a question. Sam, Robert Bruce says in his book that negative entities cannot cross water because they're electrical in nature. Would you agree? You think the water dissipates the negative energy?
Yeah, I would agree with that. You know what? That's interesting that Crypto Bounty Hunter brings it. Did I talk about the water? I talked about the water earlier.
Yeah, we were mentioning that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was thinking about it and then wrote about it. I did write about it on the Discord channel. Okay. And it did come to me that, and I was looking at the water behind me while I was thinking of that, and I couldn't see there was nothing that, was disturbing there. It was all very, very calming.
Yeah, you wouldn't have that buildup of static electricity, and we know the entities sometimes need that power. They can drain batteries, all that stuff. So that's really interesting. Okay. And last question tonight from Pat. Hi, guys. I'm a psychic medium, but completely untrained. I've been led to crypto to be trained just like you. What can one do to develop the gift more and be of use to others? I'm about to build trust with it, but it's not that easy, especially if you have to rely on the info you're getting.
Right on, Pat. Yeah, that's a really important question to ask. And if you're completely untrained, it's just like having, weak muscles. But then once you start lifting those weights, then you'll just get stronger and stronger. And you learn from your mistakes too. So my recommendation to you would be to find at least 2 people that are interested in the subject and willing to be guinea pigs for you. And I did it with at least 2 people knowingly. Other people, I did it with them, but they were not suspecting, which I feel okay about because there were no humans harmed while I figured out whether or not I wanted to, or whether I was good enough to actually step out as a medium. And that's what I would recommend, Pat, that you start to do is find some guinea pigs. And again, the big part is not knowing them, because when you know people, you can get much more interference. You can have more ideas popping in your head. I never Google anyone. When people, for the few readings that I do, the majority of them would be, because of the readings that you guys do with me as Patreons, where we're, I'm practicing, and it's great where I can get the feedback, because I've got a constant group of individuals that when things come true, they can come back to me and say, hey, that thing you told me about like 3 months ago, I asked you, or 6 months ago, I asked you this, and it's now come true. Or the amount of money that you said I was going to get for this came true, but I didn't sell my house in October. I sold it in November. Yeah. Right. Like whatever they can get the feedback from, individuals. So that's what I would recommend that Pat does, is make sure that it's not a close friend or a family member, but somebody that you've never met before who's interested in woo-woo.
Yeah, and Sam, you've been a great example of even just watching you over the last 2 years, how how quickly now you can kind of start getting information where from, if you compare it to 2 years ago. So really, you got to practice, and even like Lost Shaker, I think he's talked about trying some readings on people that are just for practice, and just make it known that it's for practice. But you got to exercise those muscles. So Pat, the Discord is a great place to meet some people and give it a try. So that's all we have for tonight.
Yeah, and the other thing with the practicing, when they're getting back to you, what normally happens is that when things start to come true, they'll start to offer you money because they'll want you to do the readings more. But I was like, no. I was like, you know what? Why don't you just take me for lunch then, and then we'll talk at lunch. Yeah. Right. So that was fine. That made them feel like they were doing, because they're like, oh my God, she's helping me so much. But it's like, they're helping me so much, and they're taking a chance, because what if I'm wrong? What if I get the translation wrong? I mean, at least now when I charge people money, if I actually do a reading for somebody, I feel confident that I have something for them that is going to make their life better. That I'm going to have information that's very useful to them. But that's only after having those confirmations from those original clients that I was practicing with. And what it gives you more than anything is confidence. And that's what you need. If you're going to run with me, man, and do what I'm doing, you got to have the confidence, because there's a lot of people relying on you being right. Even though people are like, I know you can't get it right all the time. It's like, look, I'm trying so hard to make sure that I get as close to 100% as I can. And even if I'm not 100%, at least, what I told you, the story was correct, so that you still end up landing on your feet with the information I gave you. That's really what's important to me.
Yeah. And we're seeing that now. The horse race continues, and my portfolio hasn't been doing this. It's been doing that, in one runs, and we're seeing it happen.
All right. Well, thanks again for hanging out with me, Rudy. And I'll see some of you guys tomorrow on the Meetup with Moo Ant.
Thanks. Good night, everyone.
Okay. Bye for now.